A Roth conversion is the process of making a pre-tax account, electing to pay the taxes now, and thus eliminating by the way of conversion or changing the account from a taxable account to one that's tax-free forever. In other words, by you paying the cost of the taxes now, the conversion of the IRA requires a permanent change to the account in hopes of benefits in the future. The Bible speaks to this notion of a conversion as well as the cost associated with it, but the conversion God's Word discusses has nothing to do with money but our way of life and the cost to convert from our former self to this new creature, so to speak, that now looks at life a whole lot different. A good example of how God takes us humans and converts us into new creatures can be found in Acts 9:5, where a law-abiding man by the name of Saul, who will later become the Apostle Paul, is riding along minding his own business and on the lookout for Christians to persecute. When out of the blue, a loud voice, which is Jesus, stops Paul in his tracks, and from that day forward, his persecuting days of Christians are over. Now converted and under the conviction of God's Spirit, Paul is instructed in Acts 9:20 to go back to his buddies in the synagogues and explain his conversion from following the law to now following Christ. Later in Paul's ministry, he explains his spiritual conversion and speaking the truth regarding his new way of life as no longer living the life he formerly lived, but a life dedicated to Christ, which is what happens when you are converted by God's Spirit. You take on a different perspective about life, one that looks not at the past, but at the future, a future which expects God to orchestrate things for our good and His glory. Of God's conversion of mankind, the late great Watchman Nee had this to say: "Our lives should not be filled with looking back on the past, but rather be one of expectancy and awaiting the many blessings God has in store for us in the future." Still, we must acknowledge that with any conversion, whether it's converting an IRA to a Roth or converting our way of life over to Him, there's always a cost. The cost of our spiritual conversion is evidenced by the continual trials and tribulations we must still face, even though we are converted. Paul, later in his life, acknowledged how these trials work for his good and God's glory, where in 2 Corinthians 4:17 and 18, he basically said as much. So, Christian, you want to know if you have been converted from the ways of the world and now following the ways of God? Look at how you deal with the struggles that come your way. When they come, examine whether you are expecting great things from God or find yourself turning away from Him and back to the ways of the world. My advice, when the struggles come, and they will come, do not turn back to the world for hope, but immediately and humbly turn to God. Convert your mind from the things on the earth and instead start focusing on the things that await you in heaven. And I assure you, you do that and the worries of the world will start to disappear.
Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed that video. If you'd like, check out these other clips and be sure to hit that like button and that subscribe button for more videos.